Let me say something that most financial advisors will never tell you. The richest people in the world are not debt-free. They are debt-heavy on purpose. Jeff Bezos borrows against his Amazon shares to fund new ventures instead of selling them. Real estate investors take out mortgages on 10 properties at once. Private equity firms load up companies with debt the second they acquire them. Meanwhile, the average person is told debt is bad, pay it off as fast as possible, cut up your credit cards, live below your means, and they follow that advice and they stay broke. So what is going on? Why does the same thing that destroys one person's life make another person a billionaire? That is exactly what we are going to break down today. Here's the single most important concept you will ever learn about money. There are two completely different types of debt, and the reason most people are in trouble is because they only ever use one of them. Type 1 is dead debt. This is the debt that takes money out of your pocket every single month and gives you nothing in return except a temporary feeling. Car finance on a depreciating vehicle, a personal loan you spent on a holiday, a credit card bill from a weekend that did not go as planned, buy now, pay later, on a TV you barely watch. Dead debt is what most people are drowning in. And the brutal truth is this kind of debt is not just expensive. It is a trap specifically designed to keep you dependent, working harder, and never quite getting ahead. Type 2 is living debt. This is the debt the 1% actually use. Living debt is money borrowed to acquire something that grows in value or generates income. A mortgage on a rental property that pays you every month, a business loan that funds a product making 10 times its cost, a credit line used to invest in an asset before its price goes up. The key difference is this dead debt makes the lender richer. Living debt makes you richer. The 1% do not avoid debt. They avoid dead debt, and they chase living debt aggressively. Let me show you exactly how big the difference is. Say two people both take on $10,000 of debt. Person A uses it to buy a car. That car depreciates at roughly 15% per year. In 5 years, the car is worth maybe $4,000. They paid back $10,000 plus interest, so say $12,000 in total. Net result, they're $8,000 worse off. Person B uses the same $10,000 to put a deposit on a rental property. The property goes up in value, generates rental income every month, and 5 years later, the asset is worth significantly more. Net result, they use someone else's money to make themselves wealthier. Same debt, completely different outcome. That is not luck. That is a decision about which type of debt you choose to carry. I want to be honest with you about something because I think it will actually help you more than me just listing off financial theory. When I was in my early 20s, I had no idea about any of this. I did what I was told. I got a credit card to build my credit score. Then I used it because it was there. Then I got a second one when the first one filled up. Then I took out a personal loan to pay off the credit cards. Then somehow the credit cards were full again. And at one point I was paying out more in minimum payments every month than I was putting towards savings. And the terrifying part, I did not even feel poor. I had stuff. I had a decent car, new clothes, nights out. I looked fine from the outside, but I was hemorrhaging money every single month to interest payments. I was essentially renting my lifestyle. The second the income stopped, everything would collapse. And I knew it. That low-level financial anxiety never went away. I would wake up at 3 a.m. doing mental arithmetic. It was exhausting. The turning point was not some dramatic moment. I just sat down one Sunday with a piece of paper and wrote out every debt I had, what it was costing me per month, and what I had to show for it. The answer was nothing. Absolutely nothing. Every single debt I had was dead debt. I was paying thousands of pounds a year in interest and building zero wealth. That was the day I changed. And once I understood the difference between dead debt and living debt, I started making completely different decisions. The same tools that were destroying me became the tools that eventually helped me build real wealth, not by avoiding debt, by using it differently. All right, so now let us get into the mechanics. How does someone actually use debt the way the wealthy do? There are 3 strategies that come up again and again. When you study how rich people think about borrowing strategy, one is called leverage. Leverage means using borrowed money to control a much larger asset than you could afford on your own. This is the foundation of almost every major real estate fortune ever built. Here's a simple example. You have $20,000. Option 1, you invest it directly into the stock market. If it grows 10%, you make $2,000. Option 2, you use it as a deposit on a $200,000 rental property. If that property grows 10%, you have made $20,000 on a $20,000 investment. That is a 100% return, not 10%. Same money, same market conditions, but leverage multiplied your result by 10. Now, leverage works both ways. If the property drops in value, your losses are also magnified. That is why the wealthy do not use leverage recklessly. They use it on assets, they've researched in markets, they understand with income to cover the debt payments, even in a bad month. Strategy 2 is called the asset-backed loan. This is something most people have never even heard of, but it is incredibly common among the ultra-wealthy. Instead of selling their assets to access cash, they borrow against them. Imagine you own stocks worth $500,000. You want to fund a new business. The average person would sell the stocks. The wealthy person takes a loan using the stocks as collateral. Why does this matter? Because the moment you sell an asset, 2 things happen. You lose its future growth and you trigger a tax event by borrowing against it. Instead, you keep both, the asset keeps growing, you pay zero capital gains tax, and you get the cash you need. This is how many billionaires legally pay very little in income tax while still accessing enormous amounts of money. Strategy 3 is using low interest debt to invest in higher returning assets. This sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but almost nobody actually applies it. If you can borrow money at 4% interest and invest it into something returning 8%, you're making 4% on money that is not even yours. The wealthy do this constantly, whether it is through mortgages, business lines of credit, or even 0% interest balance transfers used strategically. The average person thinks if I borrow money, I'm in debt, and debt is bad. The wealthy person thinks if the return is higher than the cost of borrowing, the debt is making me money. There's another piece of this puzzle that most people completely misunderstand, and it costs them thousands. Your credit score, most people think a credit score exists to tell lenders if you're trustworthy. And yes, that is part of it. But here's what the 1% know that you probably do not. Your credit score is actually a tool you can use to access cheaper money, and cheaper money means you get to keep more of your returns. Think about a mortgage. Someone with a poor credit score might pay 7% interest. Someone with an excellent credit score might pay 4.5% on the exact same property. On a $200,000 mortgage over 25 years, that difference in rate is worth over $60,000. Just $50,000 just for having a better number on a report. The wealthy treat their credit score like a financial asset. They build it deliberately. They never miss a payment. They keep their utilization low. They do not open a dozen cards they do not need. They check their report regularly for errors because they understand something simple. A high credit score is not a reward for being financially responsible. It is a key that unlocks cheaper debt, and cheaper debt means better leverage, better returns, and more wealth over time. So how do you build yours? 3 things and do all 3 simultaneously. First, always pay at least the minimum on every debt, on time, every time. Payment history is the biggest factor in your score. Second, keep your credit card balances below 30% of your available limit. If you have a $1,000 limit, do not carry more than $300. Third, do not close old accounts. The length of your credit history matters. An old card you never use is still helping you. Okay, so far we have talked about theory and strategy. Now I want to give you something practical. I want you to do a debt audit, and I want you to do it today, not next week. Here's what you do. Take a piece of paper or open a notes app and write down every single debt you have. Every one, include the balance, the monthly payment, and the interest rate. Be brutally honest. This is just for you. Now split that list into 2 columns, dead debt on the left, living debt on the right. Dead debt is anything that is depreciating, anything you spent on experiences or things that gave you no financial return. Any high interest consumer debt. Living debt is anything tied to an asset that grows or generates income. When most people do this exercise for the first time, they are shocked because almost everything is in the left column. That is not a reason to panic. That is information, and information is power. Step 1 is to attack the dead debt. The fastest method is called the avalanche. You list your debts from highest interest rate to lowest. You pay the minimum on all of them. Then you throw every extra pound or dollar you can find at the highest interest rate debt first. Once that one is gone, you take all the money you were paying on it and add it to the next one. This method saves you the most money in interest over time. The alternative is the snowball method. You pay off the smallest balance first regardless of interest rate. This is psychologically powerful because you get quick wins and maintain momentum. Both work. The best method is the one you will actually stick to. Step 2, once the dead debt is gone, do not start spending that money. Redirect it. Every pound that was going to a credit card minimum payment should now go towards building your first living debt asset. That might be saving a deposit for a rental property. It might be funding a small business. It might be investing in a skill that increases your income and eventually your investment capacity. The moment you flip from paying dead debt to building living debt, your entire financial trajectory changes. Not slowly, rapidly, because now the compound interest effect is working for you instead of against you. I want to leave you with something that I think is more important than any strategy or tactic. The reason most people struggle with debt is not because they lack discipline or intelligence. It is because they were taught to see debt as a moral failing, something to be ashamed of, something to hide, and that emotional weight makes it almost impossible to think clearly about it. The wealthy were taught something completely different. They were taught to see debt as a tool, neutral, like a hammer. A hammer can build a house or break a window. The hammer is not good or bad. It depends entirely on how you use it. This mindset shift is the real difference, not income, not luck, not inheritance. The wealthy look at a line of credit and see potential. The average person looks at the same thing and sees danger, and in many cases, for the average person, it is danger because no one ever taught them the rules of the game they're playing. So here's your new rule. Before you take on any debt, ask yourself one question. Is this debt going to make me richer or poorer? If it is going to make you richer, it is worth considering. If it is going to make you poorer, walk away. No exceptions. Apply that single question to every financial decision you make for the next 12 months. I promise you the results will surprise you. So let us recap what we covered today. There are 2 types of debt. Dead debt takes money from you. Living debt builds money for you. The 1% use 3 debt strategies: leverage, asset-backed loans, and borrowing at low rates to invest at higher ones. Your credit score is a tool for accessing cheaper money, so treat it like an asset. Do a debt audit today and split everything into debt and living attack. The dead debt using the avalanche or snowball method, then redirect that freed up money directly into your first living debt asset and shift your mindset. Debt is not the enemy. The wrong kind of debt is the enemy. If this was useful, make sure you subscribe because I put out videos like this every single week.